So Stranger Things season 5, the finale finally finished. And yeah, it's chapter 8, The Right Side Up, the final episode of the entire series. So it's a decade-long story. I've pretty much been like in high school since I first originally saw the story in 2016. Why would you fucking Well, yeah, sorry about that. Kind of got off topic there. My mom was asking me for some stuff, but in any case, please be aware there's going to be major spoilers ahead for the final season, the final episode. So if you haven't watched it until now, please feel free to leave and then, yeah. So yeah, now that I gave you some time, so Vecna pretty much he's making his move. So everyone in the gang is pretty much stopping the upside down from merging with reality. So you got the right side up, you got the upside down, and then you have the abyss, as they call it. Vecna's goal is to merge these all into one, using the giant flesh wall thing and then the burst of energy that they had prior. So the characters pretty much a continuation from before, spring into action, and then go into essentially the last arc of what would form their story. Inside of the Upside Down, we kind of see the main group, Hopper, 11, and Callie. So these three, plus that one guy from Russia. I keep on forgetting his name, but he's the one with the glasses, you know. Got the dynamite TNT for when they blow up that flesh thing to make it kind of go boom. So yeah, we kind of see the Hopper, 11, and Callie, they pretty much do their thing where they're trying to close the flesh wall thing. I'm not too sure what it is, but they use that, and then Hopper is pretty much just watching over 11, and Callie makes sure that they kind of get into Vecna's mind and eventually kill the beast that's been haunting them for the past decade or so. So one thing that I was always curious about was while they were in the Upside Down and, you know, Vecna was doing his weird things with the little children in kind of like a high-key pedo type way, where were the demo dogs? Where were all of the minions and stuff like that in the Upside Down? Even if not the Upside Down itself, where were they at in the abyss? You know what I mean? It was wide open. Like the thing that's been haunting them and like traveling in mass the entire time, they're just not there. It's kind of like a plot hole that I seen. Kind of felt rushed. I didn't feel the payoff, to be fair. For 10 years, just waiting to see how the story unfolds, I think the battle itself was very rushed. The episode itself is 2 hours long, and we only get the first 50 minutes going into the action plan of what they done in the Upside Down, and then the actual fight with Vecna, and then the actual triumph that they have from that, as well as Eleven's decision to pretty much off herself on screen, you know? All of that happened in the first 50 minutes. And then we have the rest of the 50 minutes to an hour just going into an epilogue of each respective character and how they lived, you know, in the 18-month time skip. I mean, I wanted to see them graduate. I wanted to see Hopper and Joyce have their moment and, you know, get engaged and married and whatnot. And I wanted to see how Steve did after, you know, the traumatizing experience. But that was so long before it could eventually just reach the point where they're all doing D&D in the dungeon or the mother's basement and pretty much just ending it from there, you know, ending it how it started, playing Dungeons and Dragons, you know. I thought that was good, but I thought in the way how it carried out was so long and it left a kind of ambiguous ending, especially with, you know, 11 saying that she could be alive and the place with the 2 to 3 waterfalls that was mentioned by, you know, Mike. It's a nice ambiguous way to tie up the story, but at the same time, if you tie it up that way, it leads more questions than answers, you know? Kali, for example, when she first perished on screen, you know what I mean? It didn't make too much sense how she could then hypothetically stay alive the entire time while she's bleeding out, being able to prop herself up, or even if it is with the help of Hopper and 11, then have enough power to make a cloak version. That's like, what do you mean? You know, that's a big question mark. And then we're gonna actually just go into the fact how the military, after having all these witnesses see all of their, you know, wrongdoings and shady business, especially the main cast, right, go about like nothing happened, and the military just being like, yeah, it's all right, you know, you just know all our secrets. What you gonna do? Spread them out? No one's gonna believe you. I guess so. But all the things that they've done thus far just makes more sense for them to either interrogate them, not let them see the light of day, or, off them off screen. That's more likely than, continuing on high school, daily life, your work life, like nothing happened. The experience of Stranger Things from start to finish, I liked it. You know what I mean? We had the 2, 3, 4 year breaks in between from time to time, but the experience through and through, from season one until now, was great. Had very memorable characters, very memorable moments, and a really memorable trip. Now that I look back into it with hindsight. So, I mean, I can see two sides of what fans are thinking because I was watching this with a group of friends, right? Some were getting emotional from the buildup of seeing the epilogue. Other people that I know feel it was really anticlimactic and rushed, trying to knot everything up. It's just like priorities were just all over the place, you know what I mean? The actual fight from Vecna I saw somewhere on Twitter, or X as we say, says that the Will coming out scene from start to finish was actually longer than the scene where Vecna was fighting with Eleven. The build up from season 4 until now with the introduction of Vecna, the big bad, was really just ended in the same amount of time, or less than the same amount of time, as Will coming out the closet. Perspectives, you know what I mean? I'd wanted something more grandiose in terms of ending as well. Little did I know Vecna would be staked by Eleven and then proceed to get his head chopped by an axe from Joyce. Somewhat, that's cathartic in a sense based on all the trouble and pain that he's caused her and her family. But, I'm not going to talk about all the loopholes and whatnot. I'm sure that we've already reached a point where we see and know that there are giant gaping holes within the story itself. The demo dogs not being there, pretty much all the beasts. Why didn't he, when he became the big flesh vagina looking thing, why didn't he have the different dogs, like demo dogs and other forms of itself, pretty much go and attack them one by one? There's like so many nitpicky things we can really go about. But, from a narrative perspective, from the season finale, I give it a solid 7, I think I still have a little bit of rose tinted glasses for everything that it gave me prior to then, with the good characters, the build up. I just feel that it didn't get paid off too well at the end. The epilogue being as long as it was, that kind of not having a proper closure for the payoff that we wanted from the Vecna fight. All that, I think, pretty much just accumulated in what most people would say is a subpar ending. There's no really true way of ending a show. You can't get something like The Sopranos every single time and nail it. You know what I mean? You can't get it something like that. So yeah, being honest though, other than 11, I guess dying, not dying being somewhat ambiguous, I was also expecting there to be more deaths along the way, you know what I mean? But they were playing around with that fact. For example, with at least my personal favorite character, right? Steve, for example. They were playing around with us in the first half. Oh, is he gonna fall off the radio tower and then the first death starts here? But nah, it didn't end like that. It really didn't end like that. He got saved. And then that kind of set the pace for everyone else not dying. And then, yeah. It was the end. It's the final episode. You know what I mean? There can be some sacrifices here and there. I mean, that was the trend that they did make for every other subsequent season until now. So that was also kind of a downer. But in any case, yeah, I think it was good. As mentioned, give it a 7 to 8. 7.5 out of 10. My ranking system doesn't have any source. It's just based on how I feel at this time. 100% it'll change. But for now, I'm feeling a solid 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, just let me know how you guys think. Feel free to comment if you agree or disagree with my takes and opinions. Leave a like and subscribe, and then yeah, I'll see you again when I decide to post a video. Do you guys think there'll be a spinoff? Just nah, fuck that.